The crystal towers of Letheria glittered under the light of 3 suns. From her balcony, Princess Silira watched the sunbeams scatter over the floating gardens. The view was breathtaking, yet today it felt meaningless. Her heart was heavy with dread. Inside the palace, the air was filled with a tension that Silira could not ignore. Servants whispered hurriedly, bowing as they passed, while guards patrolled the corridors with quiet precision. Something important was happening. Something that would change her life forever. Her father, Emperor Veyron, summoned her to the Grand Council chamber. The room was enormous, walls made of polished crystal reflecting every movement and thought like living mirrors. Silira stepped lightly, though her stomach twisted in anxiety. When she entered, her father sat on the throne, tall and imposing, as always. Beside him, a council of elders waited silently. Their eyes were sharp, unreadable, but Silira sensed the weight of the message about to be delivered. "Princess Silira," Emperor Veyron said, his voice steady and commanding, "I have an important announcement." His eyes, the color of molten silver, fixed on her. "You are to be wed to Commander Arcane of Earth." Silira froze. The words hung in the air like a storm ready to break. "Father, what?" "That human?" Her voice shook, betraying her fear. "No, this cannot happen." The council remained silent, but Emperor Veyron did not waver. "It is not a matter of your desire, Silira. This is a matter of the Alliance. Humans are strong, strategic, and their influence across the galaxy is growing. Our people will benefit from this union." Silira's mind raced. Humans. She had read about them in galactic records. Stories of brutality, conquest, and unrelenting ambition. Tales of planets conquered and civilizations destroyed. Humans were feared, and she had been taught to fear them. "No, father," she cried, stepping back. "You don't understand. Humans, they are ruthless. I cannot, will not, marry a man who could destroy us without a second thought." Emperor Veyron's gaze softened slightly, though his voice remained firm. "Silira, I understand your fear. I too have heard the stories. But fear is not a reason to refuse duty. Commander Kane is more than what the rumors say. You will meet him soon, and I trust that you will see his worth. You are Letheria's future, and your choices must consider our people first." Silira felt the walls of the chamber close in. Her mind refused to accept the idea. A human, as her husband. The thought was unbearable. She had trained all her life in diplomacy, in understanding alien cultures, but humans were an unknown she could not control. She turned abruptly and left the chamber, moving through the palace halls in a blur of anger and confusion. Her heart pounded as she tried to escape the reality her father had imposed. She found herself in the garden terraces, the scent of Letheria's flowering crystals heavy in the air. She sank to a bench, burying her face in her hands. "How could he?" she whispered to herself. "How could father decide this for me? I don't even know this human. And yet I am to wed him." As she sat, the wind carried news feeds from across the galaxy. Holographic images of human ships flashed across the terrace, their sleek forms cutting through alien skies. Images of humans in battle, in leadership, in conquest, all reinforced her fear. They were strong, yes, but also dangerous, merciless, unpredictable. But then, in a quieter corner of the feed, she saw something different. Humans helping alien refugees, negotiating peace treaties, saving lives during natural disasters. Silira blinked. Was it possible? Could these humans be capable of kindness as well as strength? She shook her head. She did not trust it. Humans were warriors. That was what she had been taught. That was what the galaxy believed. Her advisor, a gentle older Letherian named Rilvan, approached quietly. "Princess, are you well?" he asked, his voice soft yet carrying the wisdom of decades. Silira looked up, frustration and fear clear in her eyes. "Rilvan, how can father do this? He wants me to marry a human, a ruthless human. Don't you see what the stories say? Don't you understand the danger?" Rilvan nodded slowly. "I understand your fear, Silira. Humans are different, yes. They are unpredictable, but they are also capable of great courage and honor. Perhaps it is not the human that is the danger, but the fear of the unknown." Silira shook her head, feeling tears prick her eyes. "I can't marry him. I can't." Rilvan sat beside her. "You will have the chance to meet him. Observe him. Judge him for yourself, not from rumors or fear. Perhaps the human you fear is not the human you will know." Silira clenched her fists, torn between obedience and dread. The very idea of meeting Commander Kane filled her with both fear and curiosity. She did not want to hope, yet a small, stubborn part of her wondered if Rilvan was right. That evening, as Letheria's twin moons rose, bathing the palace in soft silver light, Emperor Veyron summoned Celira once more. "The human arrives tomorrow," he said simply. "You must be ready to greet him. Your duty is not optional." Celira's stomach twisted and she nodded silently. Duty. She had always been taught to put Letheria first, but could she ever see herself beside this human? Could she ever trust him, respect him, or care for him? The night was restless. Celira lay in her chambers staring at the ceiling, imagining a tall, strange human walking through her palace halls. Every story she had heard about humans played in her mind. Every fear, every warning whispered by diplomats and scholars. And yet, beneath the fear, a spark of curiosity flickered. She had always faced challenges with grace and courage. Perhaps meeting Commander Kane would teach her something new, something about humans, about duty, and perhaps about herself. As dawn approached, Celira rose from her bed and gazed out at the horizon. The suns of Letheria were climbing the sky, their light cutting through the morning mist. The human was coming. She did not know if she would survive the meeting unshaken, but one thing was certain: her life was about to change forever, and deep down, a small voice whispered almost in defiance, "No matter how ruthless he may be, I will see the truth for myself." The stage was set. The princess and the human would meet, and the galaxy would watch. The morning of Commander Arik Kane's arrival was bright and tense. The three suns of Letheria shone with unusual brilliance, scattering rainbow reflections across the palace's crystal towers. Princess Celira stood on the balcony of her private chambers, her hands gripping the railing tightly. Today she would see him. The human, the one she feared most in the galaxy. The announcement of his coming had traveled faster than any starship. Courtiers and servants whispered as they moved through the halls, speculating on the man who had earned the title of Ruthless Human. Some spoke of his victories in interstellar battles, of planets subdued and empires challenged. Others, more cautiously, hinted that he was respected for his fairness even in warfare. But Celira had only one feeling: dread. She had prepared herself as best as one could for meeting a human. She had read every report, every record, and memorized countless accounts of his deeds. But all that knowledge did nothing to calm the nervous flutter in her chest. "Princess Celira," a soft voice called behind her. She turned to see Rilvan, her old advisor, bowing slightly. "He has arrived in orbit. The shuttle will land within the hour." Celira nodded silently, her eyes narrowing. "I am ready, Rilvan." "As ready as I can be." Rilvan's eyes were gentle. "Remember, Princess, humans are not monsters. They are strong, yes, but strength alone does not define them. Observe him carefully." Celira's lips pressed into a thin line. Observation would be hard. Every instinct told her to distrust him. Humans were unpredictable and dangerous. Yet something in Rilvan's calm voice suggested she might be wrong. The shuttle descended, gleaming white against Letheria's crystalline landscape. It moved with a precision and elegance she had never seen in human craft. As it landed softly on the designated platform, guards stepped forward, weapons lowered but alert. The palace doors opened and a figure stepped out. Commander Arik Kane was tall, broader than any Letherian Celira had ever seen. His uniform was simple, yet it carried an air of authority. His hair was dark and his eyes, sharp, intelligent, and unflinching, scanned the surroundings with practiced caution. There was a confidence about him that was undeniable. Celira's breath caught. He did not look like a monster. He looked human, real, alive. "Princess Celira," Kane said, his voice steady but polite, acknowledging her presence with a slight bow. "It is an honor to meet you." Celira's lips parted, but no words came. She merely inclined her head in response, unsure whether to trust her own instincts. "Shall we walk?" Rilvan suggested, sensing her tension. Celira nodded reluctantly, and together they moved toward the palace gardens. Kane followed with a calm stride, every movement deliberate. The gardens were magnificent. Crystals floated in the air like tiny stars, and the scent of Letheria's flowering plants filled the air. Celira had always found peace here, yet today it was difficult to focus. Kane's presence drew her attention like a magnet. "So," Kane said, glancing at the floating flowers with curiosity, "this is Letheria. Beautiful, unlike anything I've seen before." Celira blinked. He did not speak of conquest or power. He admired her home. That small observation made her chest tighten. Perhaps he was different from what she had feared. As they walked, Celira watched Cain interact with the palace guards. He gave orders calmly without harshness, yet every instruction was clear and precise. The sun had barely risen when the grand Lithirian training arena hummed with anticipation. Warriors from across the palace and the city had gathered, their crystalline armor glinting in the morning light. The arena floated above the gardens on a platform of polished crystal, suspended by energy fields that shimmered in the sunlight. Today, Princess Celira would see Commander Arik Cain face a test unlike anything humans had ever known. The test of valor was a Lithirian tradition, a way to measure courage, intelligence, and honor. No stranger could simply arrive and claim to be worthy of the royal family. Even emissaries from powerful worlds were subjected to its challenges. For Cain, it was a test not only of skill but of character. Celira stood on a balcony overlooking the arena, her heart pounding. She had already witnessed Cain's arrival, and his subtle display of respect and intelligence. Yet the thought of seeing him in a challenge designed for Lithirian warriors, beings known for their agility and strategic mind, made her anxious. "Remember, Princess," Rilvan whispered beside her, "the test is as much about the mind as the body. Watch carefully. Observe his choices." Cain stepped onto the arena floor, his uniform replaced by light training gear that allowed free movement. He looked around briefly, studying the layout. The arena was a complex structure of shifting platforms, suspended beams, and holographic simulations of combat. Lithirian warriors had trained here for years to master both agility and strategy. The first challenge was physical. Cain had to cross a series of moving platforms suspended over a simulated energy pit. Many Lithirian trainees had stumbled on the initial attempt. The platforms shifted in unpredictable patterns, testing reflexes and timing. Cain paused, analyzing each platform. Unlike a Lithirian whose reflexes were naturally honed, he relied on calculation and observation. He moved with careful precision, timing his steps and adjusting to the shifts. When a platform nearly tilted beneath him, he reacted instinctively, jumping to the next with remarkable accuracy. Celira's eyes widened. Humans were often considered less agile than Lithirians, yet Cain moved with confidence and skill. The whispers among the spectators changed from doubt to intrigue. Next came the strategic challenge. Holographic enemies appeared on the arena floor, simulated opponents programmed to test judgment, not strength. Cain had to defeat them while minimizing harm. Some warriors would strike without thought, overpowering their holographic foes. Cain, however, paused, analyzing patterns and finding ways to disable them without unnecessary force. He guided one hologram into a containment field instead of destroying it, and another into a harmless trap. His decisions were deliberate, effective, and humane. Celira felt a stirring of respect mixed with surprise. She had feared a ruthless conqueror, but here was a human who could fight and strategize without cruelty. "Impressive," she whispered to Rilvan. He thinks differently than a Lithirian." Rilvan nodded. "Humans are unpredictable, Princess. But sometimes that unpredictability is a strength. Watch closely." The final stage combined both agility and intellect. Cain faced a puzzle, a series of platforms, each triggering a different response in the arena. If he misstepped, holographic traps would activate. Some Lithirians struggled, overthinking or acting too hastily. Cain paused, observing patterns, noting how previous attempts had failed. Then, with a mixture of logic and instinct, he moved. Each step was measured, each decision intentional. When he reached the end, not a single trap had been triggered. A murmur ran through the audience. Lithirian elders, usually stoic and reserved, exchanged glances of approval. Cain had not only completed the test of valor, he had done so with ingenuity and restraint. Celira felt her chest tighten. Could it be that humans were different than the stories claimed? She had seen strength, courage, and now wisdom in action. Cain was not the merciless warrior she had feared. He was admirable. After the test, Cain approached Celira. He was slightly out of breath, but his eyes held clarity and calmness. "It is unlike anything I've faced," he admitted, glancing at the arena. "Your people's training is rigorous, precise. I respect it greatly," Celira's voice caught. "You and I succeeded. You used strategy, but you also spared your opponents," Cain nodded. "I believe true strength is knowing when to act and when not to. Power without thought can become cruelty. That is why I fight the way I do. Celira studied him, seeing for the first time the layers of human morality, intelligence, and courage. She had expected fear, brutality, or arrogance. Instead, she saw confidence tempered by respect, strength balanced with empathy. Her own fears began to waver. Perhaps humans could be allies, not just threats. Perhaps this one human could be trusted, if only she could understand him fully. Later, the arena emptied, leaving Cain and Celira alone amidst the glimmering crystal structures. Cain turned to her, a small smile on his lips. "You watched closely," he said. "Do you think I am worthy of your people's trust?" Celira hesitated. I do not know yet, but you have shown me something different from the stories. That counts for a lot." He nodded thoughtfully. "Stories are often exaggerated. Humans are capable of both good and ill, just like any species. My goal has always been to protect, not to dominate. I hope my actions speak louder than the rumors." Celira felt a warmth in her chest she had not expected. She had feared meeting him. She had dreaded his arrival. Yet now she could not deny the spark of respect she felt. Rilvan approached, bowing slightly. "Princess, the first stage is complete. Observe the rest carefully. There will be more tests, and they will challenge not only skill but character. You are beginning to see that humans can be complex, yes?" Celira nodded, still focused on Cain. Complexity. That was a word she had never associated with humans before. She had only known fear and caution. But here, in the bright morning light of the arena, she glimpsed a new truth. Humans could be clever, honorable, and courageous. As the day ended, Cain escorted her back to the palace chambers. They spoke little, yet each glance, each measured step, carried unspoken understanding. Celira realized that this human was not just strong, he was thoughtful, principled, and aware of his own actions. That night, Celira returned to her balcony, looking out at the horizon where the suns were setting. Her thoughts swirled with uncertainty, admiration, and lingering fear. Cain had passed the test of valor, but more importantly, he had challenged everything she had believed about humans. For the first time, she allowed herself a small, cautious hope. Perhaps her father's decision was not as dreadful as she had feared. Perhaps Commander Cain was the human she could learn to understand. And maybe in time, trust. Yet even as hope stirred, a shadow of doubt remained. The galaxy was full of unknowns. Humans were unpredictable. One test could not prove everything. Celira knew the days ahead would bring more challenges, more observations, and more lessons about this human who had entered her world so boldly. And deep inside, a quiet thought lingered. This human is not just a warrior. He is something more, something I may one day respect and perhaps even admire. The sun disappeared behind Letheria's crystal spires, casting long, shimmering shadows across the palace. The test of valor was over, but the real journey, of trust, understanding, and alliance, was only beginning. The night air over Letheria was cool and full of gentle scents from the floating gardens. Twin moons hung above the palace like glowing pearls, their light turning every crystal spire into a silver flame. Princess Celira walked slowly through the moonlit paths of the royal garden, her hands clasped behind her back. Her mind would not rest. Commander Auric Cain had passed the test of valor that morning. He had moved through the challenges with strength, skill, and restraint. Every step he took had been measured. Every choice had shown discipline. Celira had spent the rest of the day replaying his actions in her mind. She had expected brutality. Instead, she had seen patience. She had expected arrogance. Instead, she had seen calm. For the first time since her father's announcement, she felt something other than fear, curiosity. Rilvan's words echoed in her thoughts. Judge him for yourself. She decided that tonight she would do exactly that. She would speak to the human directly, without courtiers, without her father's presence, without tests or rituals. She would confront him and demand answers. She found him at the far end of the garden, standing near the edge of a shimmering pool where glowing fish swam under the surface. Cain's posture was relaxed but alert, his gaze following the movement of the fish. Even when alone, he carried himself like a soldier on watch. "Commander Cain," Celira said softly. He turned, his expression neutral, but respectful. "Princess Celira." "Couldn't sleep?" She hesitated, then walked closer. The moonlight reflected off his eyes, making them look almost silver. "I came to ask you something." "Maybe many things," she said, But first I need you to be honest with me. Kane inclined his head. I'll answer as honestly as I can. Selira drew a deep breath. Humans, your kind is feared across the galaxy. You fight wars, you conquer. You push your borders further and further. Why? Why should I believe you are different? Why should I trust you? For a moment, Kane said nothing. He looked back at the glowing pool, his face thoughtful. The galaxy has many stories about humans, he said slowly. Some of them are true. We have fought wars. We have taken risks. We've made mistakes. But that's not all we are, Selira. The next morning, the palace of Letheria glimmered like 1,000 prisms under the twin suns. Princess Selira sat in the Hall of Stars beside her father, King Thalarin. The council chamber was crowded with advisors, generals, and envoys. Even Commander Arik Kane had been invited to stand near the front. Rumors had swept through the palace all night. Strange ships had been seen at the edge of Letherian space. Unknown signatures. Unknown intent. The royal guard had been doubled. Selira felt a knot in her stomach. She still remembered her conversation with Kane in the garden. She had wanted more time to think, but the galaxy was moving faster than her heart. Report, King Thalarin said. His voice echoed through the chamber. A Letherian admiral stepped forward and bowed. Your Majesty, long-range sensors confirm a fleet approaching. They are not human ships nor any known ally. Their engines are dark matter drives, their weapons appear advanced. We estimate arrival in less than 2 cycles. Murmurs spread through the hall. Selira noticed Kane's face tighten slightly. He stood straight, his eyes steady. Do they hail us? Thalarin asked. No, sire, the admiral said. They have ignored all transmissions. Selira glanced at her father. Could it be a misunderstanding? She asked quietly. Perhaps, Thalarin murmured, but his jaw was set. Another counselor whispered, If this is the Zareth Dominion, we cannot face them alone. Kane stepped forward slightly, his voice calm but firm. Majesty, I may be able to help. The human fleet has patrols near this sector. I can send a priority message. We can at least share information. The hall grew silent. All eyes turned to the human. King Thalarin's gaze sharpened. And why would humans help us? Because the Zareth have attacked human colonies as well, Kane said. We have no love for them. And because I'm here, an envoy of peace, let me do what I came here to do, Thalarin hesitated. His long fingers tapped the armrest of his crystal throne. Finally, he nodded once. Very well, Commander. Send your message. Kane inclined his head and moved toward the communications alcove. Selira watched him go, feeling a strange mix of fear and reassurance. Hours later, the palace prepared its defenses. Shields were calibrated. Fighters were moved to high orbit. Letheria's serene skies became a grid of glowing barriers and patrols. Selira stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Kane joined her quietly. He carried a small hollow device. I've sent the message, he said. But even if our fleet moves at top speed, it may take time. We'll need to hold the line ourselves. Selira's throat tightened. Our people are artists, philosophers. We have a defense force, yes, but nothing like yours. We have never faced a full invasion. Kane's voice was steady. Then we plan carefully. We use what you do have, knowledge of your own system, your energy grids, your terrain. He turned to her. Your father is strong, but you know your people's hearts. Help me speak to them. If they see us united, they will stand. She hesitated, then nodded. I will. That evening, Selira appeared before the Letherian Defense Council with Kane at her side. Her voice was clear and steady. My people, she began. For centuries we have chosen peace, but today peace is threatened. We face an enemy who does not speak, who does not respect our borders. We must protect our home. She glanced at Kane. He stood like a pillar, silent but present. This human has come to us not as a conqueror, but as an ally, she said. Today we stand together, Letherian and human, not because of tradition, but because our future depends on it. There was a ripple through the chamber. Some of the generals bowed slightly. Kane then spoke, his voice calm. I have fought the Zareth before. They strike fast, but they do not adapt quickly. If we coordinate your shields and use decoys, we can split their forces. Our goal is not to destroy them, only to hold until reinforcements arrive. The plan was set. 2 days later, the sky over Letheria turned red with the glow of incoming ships. The Zareth fleet arrived like a swarm of black knives, their hulls absorbing light. their engines leaving streaks of violet fire. Alarm sirens echoed across the crystal towers. On the command deck, Selira stood beside her father and Kane. Holograms of the enemy ships spun above the table. "They're here," the admiral whispered. "Shields up." Thalarin ordered. "All stations ready." Litheria's shield grid flickered to life, a dome of blue energy over the planet. Defense ships rose from their docks like silver birds, wings unfolding, engines glowing. Kane's voice was firm. "Positions. Remember the plan." The battle began with a flash of light. Zareth fighters dove toward the shield, firing streams of plasma. The energy dome rippled but held. Litherian ships fired back, beams of white light cutting through space. On the command deck, Selira's heart pounded. She could feel the vibration of the shield generators through the floor. "They're testing us," she whispered. "They'll find us strong," Kane said. Then a larger Zareth ship moved forward, a massive cruiser with a strange triangular hull. It began to project a pulse weapon. The Litherian shields dimmed. "They're focusing on one point," the admiral shouted. Kane reacted instantly. "Shift energy to grid point Epsilon. Launch decoys from the opposite side. Draw them away." The operators obeyed. Small drone ships shot outward, broadcasting false energy signatures. The Zareth cruiser turned to follow the decoys, its weapon pulse moving with it. The shield stabilized. A cheer rose from the crew. Selira turned to Kane. "You saved us." "Not yet," he said quietly. "We're only at the start." Hours passed. The battle raged in orbit. Litherian ships, though fewer and less armed, moved with precision under Kane's guidance. He seemed to see the whole battlefield like a map in his mind. On the ground, citizens watched the sky with fear but also pride. They saw human and Litherian forces fighting side by side. Selira felt something shift inside her. She had feared this human as a ruthless invader. Now she saw him as a shield. At one point, a Litherian defense platform was struck and began to fall toward the city. Kane ordered a group of human shuttles to intercept it, using tractor beams to slow its descent. The platform crashed in an uninhabited area instead of the central city. Thousands of lives were saved. By the third day, the Zareth had lost several ships and their formations were breaking. Long-range sensors picked up a new signature: the human fleet arriving. Huge vessels emerged from hyperspace, their hulls bristling with weapons. The tide turned. Selira and Kane watched from the command deck as the Zareth fleet began to retreat. The invaders vanished into warp space, leaving only wreckage behind. A long silence filled the chamber. Then cheers erupted. King Thalarin turned to Kane, his voice heavy with emotion. "Commander Kane, today you defended my world. You defended my daughter. You have shown the honor of your people." Kane bowed slightly. "We defended it together, Majesty." Selira met his gaze. She wanted to speak, but words failed. All she could do was nod. That evening, after the wounded were tended and the city calmed, Selira found Kane again in the garden. He was sitting on a low wall looking at the stars. "You risked your life for my people," she said quietly. "I did what anyone should," he said. "We stand together or we fall apart." She sat beside him. For the first time, she did not feel the weight of fear. She felt gratitude. And something else, respect. "Commander Kane," she said softly, "I am beginning to see you as more than just the human my father chose." Kane gave a small smile. "And I am beginning to see you as more than just the princess who feared me." They sat in silence, the garden glowing softly around them. Above, the twin moons rose again, silver and serene. The galaxy was still dangerous, but for this moment, Litheria was safe. Selira felt a strange warmth spread through her chest. Perhaps trust could grow even in the shadow of war. Perhaps this alliance could be real. She looked at Kane and thought of the future. The choice before her was still heavy, but it no longer felt impossible. The human had proved himself not with words, but with action. And action spoke louder than any vow. The palace of Litheria glowed in soft blue light as dawn rose over the crystal towers. The battle was over. The Zareth had fled. For the first time in days, the skies were clear and calm. Yet inside Princess Selira's heart, a storm still moved. She stood at her window looking out over the city. The streets were busy with repair crews and citizens rebuilding what had been damaged. Everywhere she saw signs of unity. Humans working with Litherians, sharing tools, lifting beams, tending to the wounded. The war had brought fear, but it had also brought cooperation she had never imagined. Celira thought about Commander Arik Kane. During the fight, he had stood steady as a mountain. He had risked his life not just for her people but for her personally. She could not deny it any longer. He had proven himself, yet the choice before her was not simple. Her father still expected her to honor the alliance through marriage. Her people still watched her every move. Her own heart still trembled at the idea of binding her life to someone she had met only weeks before. She closed her eyes. I must decide, she thought, but I must decide as a princess and as myself. Later that morning, the great council hall filled once again. King Thalarin sat on his throne. His long robes flowed like liquid light. Beside him stood the high priests, the generals, and envoys from other worlds who had rushed to Lytheria after hearing of the Zareth attack. Commander Kane stood in the center of the hall, calm but clearly aware of the eyes upon him. His uniform bore new marks from the battle, but he had not asked for HE.